leave the birth certificate. It doesn't matter. It's worthless.
So let's read some case law right here about due process, guys. This is from Washington versus Glucksberg, 521 U.S. In addition to the specific freedoms protected by the Bill of Rights, and I'm going to continue to say this through the night because we're going to end up with substantive rights and an understanding of it. The liberty specially protected by the Due Process Clause includes the rights to have children, direct the education and upbringing of one's children, marital privacy, use contraception, bodily integrity, and guess what, guys? Abortion. Understand this, my friends. This exclusive right to property, enjoy, use, and dispose of is unalienable. It is a substantive right. So how can you invoke a right if you don't know it? It's impossible. And that is the things y'all need to be focused on, because make no mistake, I'll give you Salandros versus Glenhaven, a ruling by the Ninth Circuit 2 weeks ago. Okay. And it's something, I think last week I posted why COVID-19 is over with, and it just disappeared, and you're seeing it just drop off. And the reason for that is because the courts are ruling that these companies going in there begging for protection. The Ninth Circuit Court for the United States ruled in open court that you didn't have to comply. The CMS, the CDC, and they wrote out everything they said: should, maybe, advice, recommendations, guidelines. That didn't stick you to anything. And so these companies are going to seek refuge when really nobody ever forced them to comply, and they read it in open court. So that's these ideas, guys. Nobody forced you to do anything. Everybody complied, and so it was able to spread for 2 years long. And it's amazing to me how these. So I've taught, I don't know, probably 3,000 people how to do an EEOC complaint. Last week, guys, I wish I knew how to share this. I want everybody to do this. Go look at the update to the EEOC website on how they changed their language now as advice to employers, right? And they've changed their language now. It reads, when it should have read 2 years ago, an application for sincerely held religious belief is not up for dispute. That language just appeared within there the last 2 weeks. But the update shows you how we affect that change by actually sticking to the law. And when I say law, I mean that which is laid, that which no other foundation can be laid. You stand on the principles of prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance, right? And you don't get outside in these crazy, vain imaginations about birth certificates, SQV trust, and all this misinformation out there. You stick to the truth.
Yeah, I mean, you came across it with your daughter with the EEOC thing when, thank God you were there with her. What happened with the EEOC officer? She tried to veer off the actual complaint that you filed. You had it in writing, what you were talking about, and she didn't want to address what was in writing, so she tried to veer off of it, and you were there to sort of rein her in and go, hey, wait a minute. I want to talk about what's on the paper here, because that's the law. I'm going to talk about the law. I'm not going to get pulled off onto these tangents. She wanted to pull you off in a tangent and distract you. And that's where a lot of people are getting pulled off with these. I call them in the weed issues. They want to argue.
And they are. They distract. It's like the guy that had we were helping earlier that had all the ideas mixed up. He's taking jurisdictionary course, but he still has to unlearn the bad habits, right? And that's what you're retraining. You haven't unlearned. Look, guys, I've been through the UCC, did all the UCC stuff. I did all the building of the trust stuff. I went through all of it. And I promise you that today I am on a rock solid foundation of how you redress the courts for grievances in which the court can grant relief. And it's through this idea that the one thing we have here that Russia, China, or no one that I know of anyway, is due process, substantive rights. It's written into our American jurisprudence. jurisprudence. It's how the system runs.
Yeah, and listen, let me address Wesley real quick. Hey, Wesley, the big bad bar association, they're not going to get you. Okay, if you understand what you're doing, they're not going to get you. Brandon will tell you he's doing a will caveat, and he got the attorney to. What did he do? He recused himself, didn't he?
He recused himself. Matter of fact, I'll give everybody an update right now. I put a motion to disqualify on him and entered the bar grievance into the record. Okay,
that's my favorite. That's my favorite. You put it on the record.
So the only way he could save face is turn around and do a motion to withdraw, and the hearing's April 19th, right? But he's done. I've already hit him with the bar grievance. I've already entered the lies into the record. So April 19th, he had to actually do a motion to withdraw. I wasn't just going to let him go with recusing himself.
But Brandon, he controls everything. He controls the estate. He controls the property. How did you do that? How could that happen? But he's a bar member. He controls it all, according to Wesley.
No, he don't control anything. It's if you stand on these principles that I keep trying to tell everybody about. If you stand on principles that are unmovable, guys, all this fear-based illusional crap is just going to fade away. And what you're going to do is you're going to tie everything back down to standing in honor, truth, and integrity. Guess what, guys? They can't criminalize good behavior. They can't criminalize honor. They can't criminalize that I actually care about my duty to my brother. Whether how dumb that knucklehead may be, I still see God in him. You know, he's still my brother. I can't help that he's that ignorant. It's not my duty to force feed him, but I still see these principles that I have these duties as a reasonable man. So as long as I'm reasonable, not committing criminal acts, well, how can they come against me? They can't. If no weapon formed shall ever prosper against me when I'm living that way. And I can't believe how many of our brothers and sisters don't understand this simple idea.
No, they get these got people about land, air, and water jurisdiction. Well, that's not what you challenge. That's not jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is in personam, subject matter, and in rem, and there's territorial. But the main two you're going to deal with are in personam and subject matter jurisdiction. So go learn what jurisdiction is instead of rattling off what you've seen on some website or what some video told you that that's land, air, and water jurisdiction. No. Okay, that's not jurisdiction. Go read what jurisdiction actually is. Go get yourself a copy of American Jurisprudence and read what the courts say jurisdiction is and how it must be accomplished.
Well, there's a lady in this chat right now that I'm helping in El Paso, Texas, okay, who was very frazzled at the beginning, just like everyone else, got the paperwork in there, put the municipal liens on her stuff and everything else. And we just calmly walked through the process. Let's do the records request first, right? We got the records request back in the state of Texas, and we got the contract back from the lawyers. And of course, the contract with the lawyer states that only participating entities do they have control over. What's a participating entity? Okay, but the lady from the office tells this lady that we don't know which agency regulates private shelters. Okay, hold up, folks. They don't know which agency regulates private shelters. You want to know why? Because you have an exclusive right to own property. And when we asked them, where was the proof, validation, the lawful promulgation for the commercial activity that was supposed to be registered at this residence, right? They can't provide it. These ideas, folks, if you learn these ideas, you'll see the fraud and where it's really at. It's not about land, air, and water. It's not about a Sesquivu trust. It's about people coming in. We're about 6 generations into this fraud now, so that's about 80-something years, okay? About 80-something years of this fraud where they have turned every home into a commercial business. They've taken every paycheck, wages, labor, which is property in American jurisprudence, by the way. That's your property, and got you to voluntarily contract all your rights away. It's fraud. It's void ab initio. There was no meeting of the minds where they go, oh, by the way, we'll come pick up your trash this weekend if we charge you $10,000 a year for your property. I mean, I'll burn it in my backyard, buddy.
Yeah, they have taken what's called practice, customs, and policies, and they're enforcing them as laws. They're not laws, okay? Basically, this is the this is how we do it line, okay? I've had a cop tell me that one time. Well, this is how we do it, and I said, all due respect, officer, you can't go into court and state, well, this is how we do it. You've got to have a legal basis for it. And he said, back up, you're making me nervous. What? I'm sitting here explaining how the actual law works was making them nervous. But so yeah, and this is just the cement home what Brandon was saying. Listen, the people that believe in the Sestake trusting and the old cap name, and you're giving these people way too much credit. You got to sit down and talk to some of these people, okay? These are button pushers. They get these jobs. They're told to do this. They're told to do that. Now the bar's running the game behind they're the puppet masters behind the municipality, because any legal thing you send to them, they're going to give to the bar association member, and he's going to give them an answer that hopefully will not get them jailed or get them in trouble, okay? But here's what they're actually doing, and if you want to see it firsthand, I sent a simple record request out to my local township to ask for the contract between the township and the law firm that had placed a lien on my house, supposed lien on my house. Okay, it's not a lien, but I asked for the contract, and the township turned around and told me, "Oh, we don't have any contracts with that law firm." Okay, so what? The guy woke up one day and decided to create a lien against my property. So what they did instead was they gave me a contract with the collection firm that collects the taxes. Lo and behold, who's the president of that collection firm? The attorney from the law firm that they didn't have the contract with. So he's the president of the collection firm. And they actually sent me the contract. And on the contract, first of all, it was 6 years old. It expired in 2015, which I find comical because it says expiration date 2015. It's right on there. And on the very first page, it says that law firm that basically supposedly placed the lien on my house, they were collecting, it said it right there, mercantile and business privilege taxes. Right there. They were treating my shelter, my home here, that there must be some mercantile or business privileges going on here, and they must have authority to tax it. So what they're doing is they're falsifying their tax roll. It's nothing more than that. They're falsifying their tax roll. It has nothing to do with a straw man. It has to do with incompetence from the tax collector, who the dummy sends me a contract that's 6 years old, and right on there, evidently he didn't read it because, my God, he should have seen that they're collecting mercantile and business privilege taxes, and he should have known there's no business operating at my property, my home here. So you need to read this stuff, and you need to understand what's actually going on, and stop getting distracted with these in the weed issues.
Yeah, and so I've had great success. I just put one up. Henry A went and beat a traffic ticket. A friend of mine, I'm not going to say his name. I think he posted it in the Big Sib Telegram. I won his motion to dismiss for lack of in personam jurisdiction and subject matter jurisdiction. Guys, I'm not telling you this after doing this for the last 6 months because these things don't work. I'm not telling you this because I didn't write affidavit after affidavit and EEOC complaint after EEOC complaint because they didn't work. Okay, I'm telling you right now that you have substantive rights that have been violated and that bypass due process of law, which leaves these people open to liability. I'm trying to teach you how to actually stand and move forward instead of doing all this charade over here. So I'm trying to help. That's why I've removed Wesley. I'm just not gonna just continue to see him post crazy stuff and over. And you guys know how much I don't like doing that. I don't like removing people. I would hope to be able to reach everyone. But with that, let's continue on down due process. We're going to section 933 now. 935. And this is due process is related to common law and fundamental rights. All right, guys, when I say fundamental, that means foundation, mental. Okay. That is what fundamental means. The foundation, no foundation can be laid other than that which can be laid. And when I say I want to clarify this too, guys. Brandon sometimes mixes spiritual words in his teaching because I have a spiritual channel. Make no mistake. You do not do that in a court of law or inside your writing. Okay? Do not make that mistake. I'm trying to express to you the foundation of everything. Don't go using your subjective ideas inside the objective world of Caesar. This is the paper world. Okay, it operates by paper, so don't do
Don't
that.
say realm. Like the one guy was saying, the realm. Listen, that's great. You can talk about that with your friend or your family. Don't put realm on a legal document because they're going to look at you and go, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" Okay.
That's right. They're not going to understand it. It's not understandable. Okay. These principles are there. I'm just trying to explain them to y'all to where everybody can understand. Section 935, constitutional law, due process. The due process clauses provide heightened protection against government interference with certain fundamental rights and liberty interests. Rights are fundamental. Men and women have rights. Corporations do not. Okay. Rights are fundamental, requiring a governmental regulation infringing those rights to be narrowly tailored to serve a compelling state interest when they are implicit in the concept of ordered liberty or deeply rooted in the nation's history and tradition. Choices about marriage, family life, the upbringing of children are among the associated rights ranked as of a basic importance in our society and are rights sheltered by the 14th Amendment against the state's unwarranted usurpation, disregard, or disrespect.
Damn 14th Amendment.
There it is again. It's horrible. Common law rights must be distinguished from, as they are not the equivalent of fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are recognized by the United States Constitution itself and are protected by substantive due process. Common law rights are protected only by procedural due process. So listen, guys, listen to me. This is something that I'm just starting to break because what I have is an issue of sovereign immunity with the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians. That sovereign immunity only applies on the procedural side of what? Civil action. It doesn't apply on the common law pleading nor with substantive due process because they're fully bound and created from the United States Constitution. So in order for my well-pleaded complaint to be right, that's why I'm still working on it 7 months later. And this is some good advice. Somebody asked this earlier about you, Alphonse. Why are you still writing your complaint? Don't rush your pleading. Your pleading is going to be the most important part that you put in on the record. It should take you a little time. You can't go whip up a good pleading in 10 minutes.
Yeah, here's how this works. And listen, I noticed from the people that have got multi-million-dollar settlements, and one of the things they stress is, hey, listen, you want to know that pleading inside and out. So that here's what's going to happen. When you write a killer pleading that's going to be filed in federal district court and you file the suit, you've got to get an answer back from them. They have two options. They got to either try and motion it out of court, which is with a 12B6 motion, and they got to have a real good reason to motion it out. But if you have good, you have good things in your pleadings, they can't 12B6 motion it out. They can't get rid of it. So that leaves them one alternative. They got to answer it. Well, there's certain things they're not going to be able to answer. Like the property tax suit. In Pennsylvania, there's this pesky thing called the fiscal code in Pennsylvania is called Title 72. And when you read Title 72, 4843.1, it states return by taxpayer. Okay. And it states in order to ascertain the amount of the assessment, your property assessment, any kind of assessment, the taxpayer must file return with the county. Okay. And if you don't file return with the county, you could be fined $500 or serve up to 6 months in jail. Okay. So when you could rattle that off the top of your head when you sit down with these people, because remember, they've got to give you an answer to your pleading. And there's certain things you're not going to be able to answer in that pleading. So what's going to happen is in week 4, 5, or 6, I'm going to get a phone call from somebody from the county. And they're going to say, hey, we want to have a meeting. We want to talk to you. And here's what they're going to find out, what they want to find out. They want to find out, did somebody write that pleading for me? In other words, did I get this from somebody? Is this something I copied off the internet? Okay. And just slap my name on it. Do I understand what's in that pleading? And the main thing they want to know is do I understand what's in that pleading? And they want to find out, did I write it? And can I litigate it? Because If they figure out from talking to me when I sit there and go, hey, pursuant to 724843.1, you guys need to return in order to ascertain the amount of the assessment. When you start rattling stuff off like that, that intimidates them because they know we can't go into court with this guy because he's going to destroy us. He knows exactly what's in that paperwork and he understands it. This is not something he got off the internet. He's got a firm grasp of material that's in his pleading. So that's why you take your time with this stuff. You don't rush this through. Because what's going to happen is when you sit down at that meeting, if you don't understand something in your pleading, you're going to look like a moron when they ask you about it. But if you could rattle it off and explain it, they're going to go, hey, they're going to go once they have a break in the meeting, going to say, hey, listen, we can't go to court with this guy. We're going to get destroyed because he's got the law on his side, and we can't give a legitimate answer because how do we explain how we're violating the Pennsylvania tax code? Where is that written that they could just decide that they're going to violate 724843.1? They can't give me an answer, so they're going to give me a settlement. So that's why you take your time writing these suits, because you want to understand them. It's great to take things, borrow things from people, borrow stuff from other suits, but make sure you understand what's that thing you borrowed. Make sure you know it to your core, so that if somebody asks you about it, you could rattle it off.
Right. And that's why we're doing these foundational studies, right? And just discussions between me and you. Someone somewhere is going to hear this and something's going to click. And you're going to like this section right here. It pertains to your particular case. I think you're going to really like it if you haven't read it yet. This is section 937 of constitutional law. Due process is federal or state question. Even though state law plays a role in determining the existence of property or liberty interests which are protected by the due process clause, whether a property interest is protected for purposes of substantive due process is a question that is not answered by reference to state law. And the ultimate question of the degree of due process protection to be afforded under the due process clause remains a federal one. For the due process clause does not require a state to implement its own law correctly, nor does the United States Constitution insist that local government be right.
Well, I mean, you're reading American Jurisprudence. How many times do you see something in there and you go, "Oh my God," I didn't know that was there. I read one the other day. I copied it from my buddy. It states that if there's a conflict in an ordinance or a statute or a law between the municipality and the citizen, they must side with the citizen. It's right there. They've got to side with the citizen. Why, Brandon? Because you have rights. Corporations, their rights, they have no rights. They have duties and obligations that are created by way of charter. Okay, that's how they were created. They were created under charters. So you have rights. So if you're going to dispute with a municipality, if you could cite this stuff and rattle it off, they've got to side with the citizen. There's that horrible word again, citizen, So it's really just, you need to read this stuff, because when I got American Jurisprudence, I thought it was going to be very government heavy, that they were going to side, very government, pro-government. It's the complete opposite. It's very people heavy, okay? Very man and woman heavy, very rights heavy, very property rights heavy. And when you read this stuff, you will literally sit there and go, oh my God, they never taught me this in school. I've never heard anyone ever tell me this before. It's right there at my fingertips. Nobody taught me this before. And that's a reason they haven't taught you this, because it's the control mechanism that they've instituted through education, through media, through your family. You pay that tax because your mom and dad paid it, and their mom and dad paid it, and your great grandparents paid it. And we've really gotten away from actually reading stuff. And I'm sure Brandon's like me. Somebody tells me something, I go check it out and read it to make sure.
Yes. I don't believe anybody.
No, don't believe anything I tell you. Don't believe anything Brandon tells you. Go check it out for yourself, because say sometimes we might make a mistake. But I've seen people quote things, court sightings in the Telegram chat, and then I'll go look at the actual case, and I can't find it anywhere in there. And what they quoted is totally opposite what that case was about.
And I remember, Alphonse, I go back years ago just trusting information on the internet, and you know it too. I've probably posted case law that didn't exist myself. But a lady asked a while ago, where am I reading this from? So let me explain something to everyone here. I want to read something from the Bible, and I'm not going to get too big into the Bible tonight, but I really want people to really understand this. What this is really about is just one section, okay? And what I'm going to tell you is, woe unto you, lawyers, for you have taken away the key of knowledge. You entered not in yourselves, and them that were entering in you hindered. And as he said these things unto the scribes and the Pharisees, began to urge him vehemently and to provoke him to speak of many things, laying wait for him and seeking to catch something out of his mouth, that they might accuse him. Okay? So I've understood this word play and this word game in a way that I understood that there was keys locked away. So I have purchased, I pay a subscription for this Westlaw here to search case law, because that's how devoted I am to this process of maintaining rights and liberty for my offspring. But this is where I'm reading it from, guys. This isn't fake news. This is actual American jurisprudence, 2D constitutional law, section 937. This is what none of your gurus are ever going to tell you. None of your gurus are going to read to you the real law. What they're going to do is cite poppycock and imaginal things, and then we're going to scroll down here, and this is what makes American jurisprudence so powerful, guys, because it's not only going to give you the law, how it's supposed to be interpreted, it's going to give you the case law of the Supreme Court and other judicial courts of the United States and how they ruled on it. So when you go read the case law, you learn how to plead the statute. You learn how to plead it correctly, the elements of that statutory idea that you want to plead, because everything has an essential element, right? So this is how you learn to do this stuff. And unfortunately, these ideas like right here, that I just read to you, and the ultimate question of the degree of due process protection to be afforded under the due process clause remains a federal one. For the due process clause does not require a state to implement its own law correctly. Hey, folks, that's a big deal. You want to know why the states run roughshod over us with these political subdivisions? Because they're not part of your substantive right process. That comes from the original document of negative liberties, which was the Constitution. So we forgot all these things, and with feigned words, we've been made merchandise out of. So for the people, you can't have links to this. There's a free link for jurisprudence, guys. What's his name? Put it in here earlier. Okay, there's a free link on the internet of older versions. The only thing that has changed is the rule in case law. That's it. Okay. Well, with Westlaw, what I get to do is I get to go pull up a case law, and I get to go see whether that case has any red flags on it. I'll show you right here. Okay. And we'll see up here, it's got one yellow flag. Okay. So it's only got 3 negative treatments. And then I can go pull those negative treatments and make sure that this is still a ruling case. And it is. And what it does is make sure that when I walk into that courtroom, and when I walk in there, like Alphonse said earlier, when I start talking, they're going to know that I know what the heck I'm talking about. It's not going to be a matter of question whether Brandon actually knows this information. No, here, let me pull this up. No, and I'll tell you why. I've had 20-something lawyers that I'm in conversation with, attorneys. They don't know. I've got paralegals that contact me on here. I've got lawyers that contact me through my YouTube channel. They've never been taught substantive due process either. Okay? Never. They went to the same dumbed down, watered down education system that everybody else did, and they learned a compartmentalized area of knowledge, and that's all they know.
And PP, listen, real quick. I didn't get into this because I love the law. Okay. I don't think Brandon got into this because he loves the law. Okay. You get into this because somebody pushes you into the mud pit with the pigs. So you decide either you're going to get out of it by paying them or doing whatever they want you to do, or you're going to sit in there and wrestle around with the pigs until you can learn what you're doing. So my famous sewer authority case, hey, listen, the guy that he filed this phony lien against me, this attorney. Listen, that guy probably had a $250,000 law education, at some, some university. He's had at least 30, he was an older dude. He's at least 30 years experience over me. He should have kicked my tail around, okay? But I taken a jurisdictionary course. I knew just enough to file motions and to halt his progress until I could get my bearings and figure out what was going on. And once I did, and I start learning, hey, I could look it out. I could file state criminal complaints against this guy. Oh, I could file bar grievances and go bang his insurance. Well, guess what? They fired that guy. He don't have that job no more, okay? He's still an attorney, but he's not working for the sewer authority no more, okay? That's me. And guess what? On the back of that sewer authority bill for the 30 years I've been at this property, there was warning language on the back. You've seen it on your mortgages, your tax bills. Hey, if you don't pay us, we're going to file liens against you and you could lose your property. That was on the back of that bill for 30 years. Guess what's on the back of the bills now that they send out? White paper, blank, okay? Somebody look, because I addressed this in record requests, and I addressed this in court matters, and I addressed this in criminal complaints filed with the DA and the state attorney general. And guess what? I got the state attorney general's attention now. She actually called the district attorney